Lollipopping, twerking in some J's.
Okay, that's one of Cardi's weakest bars. Like, what's this? Anyway, let's chat. So today we're going to be chatting about this post that I saw on Twitter, and it kind of aligns with Mental Health Awareness Month because boundaries are a huge part of how we keep our mental health in tip-top shape. So that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to show you the post. It looks like it was, probably originally a Facebook post put out by somebody mama. Might be real, might not be. We're going to assess this thing anyway, okay? So take a couple seconds, look at the post, and then I'm just going to go, okay? Let's do this. Okay, so something that I haven't really got to talk about that I think is so vital and is going to be a really big part of my work as a professional is about the Black family parental child dynamic, and that dynamic as pertaining to boundaries. So I just personally feel like a lot in the Black community, especially like as a millennial, if you have parents that are in that older generation or who consider themselves old school, the unfortunate part about that is that they have been taught, and again this is generational, that if a child is dependent on you financially, then they are not entitled to boundaries. Even if a child isn't dependent on you financially, they aren't entitled to boundaries. It's a big problem that I see. I've experienced it in my own family, and I've seen others really just feel like no matter what they do, their parent or guardian, caregiver, whoever, still feels like they can dictate, certain things about their life. So initially you read this, and because a lot of us, again, a lot of my audience is Black, a lot of us gonna read this and we're gonna be like, yeah, ma, because we've been conditioned to think that this way of doing things is appropriate. Oh, well, it's her money. She gave him that money for a specific purpose, and because he didn't use the money in the way she wanted him to use it, then yeah, he don't deserve the money anymore. Yeah. Then another argument I saw, well, then what happens when he spends it, and then he's just gonna come ask you for more money. Okay, that's an outcome that could possibly happen. But what I think the bigger issue is a lot of us equate money to control. So again, a lot of Black parents have this same idea. If I'm providing for you financially and giving you things, then that means you play by my rules. And so people will be like, oh, well, she did say that the girl could stay there, like he's just so thirsty that he wants to stay in a hotel. Well, let's remember that is a 22-year-old guy. Yes, he's still being supported by his family. And there is a lesson to be learned here. Okay? So let's go back to what I'm saying about how we think that money equals control. I saw a girl say, like, well, you don't get no boundaries if you still living off your parents or whatever. Huh? We need to completely step away from that ideal, because essentially when you give money, and I've talked about this before, when you give money, support, anything, it's supposed to be with no strings attached. So the same thing y'all try to do when y'all give a homeless person money, oh, they gonna spend it on drugs or alcohol. That's their prerogative. Once the money leaves your hands, it's out your hands. So how I feel is that if that's a boundary he wants to say, okay, I don't want to bring my girlfriend in your house, so I'm going to take the money that you gave me and spend it on that instead of what you instructed me to spend it on. When he come around, he don't have no money, don't give it to him. He'll have to figure it out like we do as adults. I don't think it's anything wrong with teaching that lesson versus not allowing him to make the mistake and never learning from it because you didn't give him the autonomy to be able to exercise this boundary. It's a hard lesson that a lot of us have to learn. And so I feel like at least you can say, I let you figure this out because you needed to, because you felt, you see that when you do not prioritize your money and allocate it towards the budgets that need it primarily, then you get left in a sticky ass spot that you have to figure out. So he's gonna have to figure that out. I think another reason why this situation is so hard for a lot of people to conceptualize, and being that like she was wrong for that, is because we're just too focused on the sex part, or not even necessarily sex, because he said sleeping together. Depending on how you take that could literally mean sleeping together, or that could sexually mean sleeping together. However, like, let's remove that piece. Let's say she gave him the money and he spent it on some Jordans or some goofy shit. You know what I mean? Like, or on a trip. Then what you gonna do? You gonna teach him the same lesson? I'm not giving you no more money because you decided to take the money that I did give you for this exact specific thing and use it towards something else. So now you have to figure it out. So I mean, essentially it's the same lesson, but letting him learn it versus being like, oh, well, no, because you're not doing exactly what I want you to do with the money. Now I'm going to completely remove it. I don't think that's fair. Like, let him exercise a boundary and he'll know better for next time. But if you never let your kids experience shit, or you always feel like, okay, well, and that's not to say, so I say like, don't give him no more money. I'm not saying in life. I'm just saying towards whatever that purpose was for, he would have to figure that out. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Like, yes, again, we see this situation and we're like, well, shit, you want to do grown people stuff, then you do it on your own coins. Okay, fair. And he'll know that for next time versus taking the good money that his mama gave him to use it towards that and being left with, I don't even know the phrase I'm looking for, just nothing. Because that's not a good feeling, especially when you know you have priorities and you have to go figure out another way. Baby, I'll never forget one time in college, I spent up my rent money, not all of it, but a big chunk of it on something goofy. I bet you I never did that shit again. I had to hustle so hard to put that money back. And I didn't want to ask nobody, because, especially my people, because they was going to look at me like, well, what did you fuck it off on? And then I would have had to explain myself. I didn't want to do that. I said, I never hustled so hard in my life for some money. I swear, I ain't do nothing crazy, but baby, that overtime at work was crazy because I was left knowing like I have this priority and I fucked up this money on something else. And that is a memory and a lesson that I carry with me through the rest of my life. I can fuck up anything else. I'm not fucking up my rent and I'm not fucking up my car note, okay? And sometimes we have to go through shit to learn it versus being like, oh, well, nope, you don't want to play by my exact rules, then I'm not gonna, I'm gonna take it back from you. No, once you give it, it's theirs. Now, do you have to keep following up to replace what they fucked up? No, absolutely not. That's where you can hold your boundary. So let's talk boundaries. That is where you can hold your boundary. I'm going to hold a boundary and not give you any more money for the next 2 weeks or whatever towards what you need this for, because I did my part. And you wanted to exercise the boundary, which was to use the money for something else. So things equal out. And y'all know I'll be transparent. Like, I just had my own first family therapy session with my parents. Specifically, the purpose was for my dad, because I feel like he doesn't respect my boundaries. He doesn't think that I have a right to my autonomy because he didn't really grow up with that. So I can't, I get it. I can't blame him for how he considers himself old school. However, I'm going to be the one to educate him and try to change that dynamic of how he sees me in his mind. Like, it was always, if I didn't do what my dad wanted me to do, then he was going to try to pull a string somewhere else. Okay, well, then don't ask me for help with X, Y, and Z. And I told him, like, you can't be like that. Because when you sign up to be a parent, You sign up to be supportive, and you have to realize that the parent and child dynamic is never going to be equal. The parent is always over time going to have given more because you are in fact the parent. As much as a kid will try to repay you for everything that you did, it's just never going to work out like that. So that is really something that I'm pushing, that like millennials really start to implement in their own lives, because we just feel like, oh, because it's family, then we do whatever they say, or we just fall in line because that's what we've been taught is the right thing to do. And that's not to say that you don't look out for family or you don't reciprocate that support. It's just that, like I said, a lot of black parents just feel like you don't have no autonomy, period. Regardless if you live under their roof, you don't live under their roof, if you get some of their help, if you get any of their help in any type of area, they feel like, well, when you don't want to do what I need you to do, then swipe it on up, or I'm going to try to make you pay in another way. And unfortunately, like, I don't think it's, it's not because they don't love us. Like, this is just what they know, and we need to work to change that. Like, our children, millennials, as you have kids, like, we have to teach them that they do have their own rights. Like, they do have the ability to say no. And that's not to say that certain rights or decisions or the right to say no won't result in certain consequences. It's just teaching them that if you can respect when they do that, then other people can also, they can demand that respect from other people, because that's how it translates. Is, oh, well, I do everything for my family and my parents because that's what I was taught to do. And so now I do that with everybody else, and I don't ever put me first because I'm always putting everybody else first. Like that whole, the moment family call, you're supposed to drop out, you doing, I be telling my clients all the time, unless it's life or death, no. Because that's how you end up overworked, overwhelmed, burnt out. This is why so many black kids can't wait to grow up and get the fuck away from their parents and their home. Like, because they feel like they don't have no freedom to make their own decisions, to make their own choices, to make their own mistakes. Like, we cannot coddle children if we want them to learn and to grow. It just doesn't work like that. I know, for one, I didn't want it to be like this, but I was like, I can't wait till I make my own money. I ain't gotta ask my daddy for shit. Like, I hated even feeling that way because I wanted his support. I also didn't like the feeling of it being thrown in my face later, or for strings being pulled when I didn't want to do something his way. Like, my own choice and my own autonomy became more important to me than what they could do for me. And that's the way that you don't want to drive in between you and your children. You don't want them to feel like, I need to completely distance myself from you or not be able to ask you for help because you don't respect my choices or my decisions, all because you provide me with money or whatever the case may be, So it's deeper than, oh, well, you shouldn't do nothing with money that your mama said don't do it with. Like, no, it speaks to a bigger issue besides, oh, just spending it. Because he could have spent it on anything. Like, are we mad because he's spending it on a hotel room to go do grown folks' business potentially? Because like I said, once the money's gone, it's gone. Like, you can't dictate what somebody does with it. You just learn to move accordingly next time. Like, it just be a lesson. Figure it out. Why are they parked like that? People. So boundaries in general, whether it be with your job, with your family, your parents, you have to exercise them, or else people will drive you crazy. And you will feel overexerted all the time because you're constantly being pulled in each and every way because people have ingrained you to think that this is what you're supposed to do. So that I took this and went out because I really that's something that's really important to me. It's just people having their own autonomy and their own sense of being able to make decisions for what they want to do and what's in their mind and what's in their heart. And if it don't work out, then it's a lesson to be learned. But I think that's all I got. Check my note. Yeah. Only support is great. Just it has to come with no strings attached, because then if that's the case, you giving from the wrong place. You know what I mean? So I understand how you could look at this and be like, he wrong, like she was right. I get it. And you got to let people learn on their own. And that doesn't mean revoking your support whenever you feel like they're not doing something that's in their better interest. Let them learn that. because it's going to be a better lesson and it's going to stick longer when they do it and learn it versus when you inflict it on them and try to make them learn it. Hope that makes sense. Okay? So, nice chatting with y'all.